Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm very happy today to be able to organize with my friend Georges Gilkinet this conference, this press conference, which is held during the Council of Ministers for Transports. We have been speaking about railway, and probably this is not just something that has happened by chance, but actually the Portuguese presidency has insisted to speak about the railway system, and we are also in the year of the railway, which has been organized by the European Union, and we are in the middle of many events that are going to be held during this year. We have, for example, COP26, where transport system will be actually the key topic that will be discussed during COP26. And of course, transport mobility, people mobility and goods mobility has a very important role in all the debate turning around climate change. Because if we really want to reduce our carbon print at the European level, we need to act in the transport system. So for these reasons, I think both of us were extremely happy that this topic was discussed today. It was a very important topic today. We have been discussing mobility, and I must say that it has already been 8 years that I have been participating in the Transport Council. This is unfortunately not the first debate, and this is not the first text that we adopt. I actually have had the chance with the Luxembourg presidency to have the fourth railway system package that was approved. But I must say that when we look at the reality in Europe, we need to note that actually reality is always a little bit late compared to our ambitions. So it has been 8 years that I have been participating in this council, and this is actually exactly why I think now the time has come for action. We need to act, we need to do things. This is one of the main problems, and we have actually noted during our discussions and during having a look actually at all the documents that have been presented also by the Portuguese presidency. Now, the problem is approving a document always requires compromises. So we need to work together and study which philosophy we want to adopt for the railway system in Europe. This philosophy actually is taking into account the liberalization of market, and the European Commission thinks that liberalizing the market can be the solution to change the railway system. But actually we need to think about the liberalization system and this strategy, because so far this strategy has not succeeded. Because when we look at the reality in Europe, actually we do note that the European Union has not gone forward, or at least has not gone as far as we were hoping compared to all the issues linked to climate change and the railway system in general. So I think we do need to change this mentality, this way of thinking. I'm not against the market liberalization, far from that, but we need to help the market, and we need to help it authorizing public investment, and we need to consider public investment not like something that is going to hinder the development of the railway system in Europe. investment in railway infrastructure is actually something that is very important, that has to be done on a national level, but the European Union must follow these investments. And when I see all the financial packages with the new Green Deal and that we have discussed with the Vice President of the European Commission, when I see all the packages that have been decided with the different member states, I think a good part of this money should be invested in concrete, in real projects for the railway system. It is not enough just to say things or to give large declarations about a system which can be a system 2.0 in order to connect all European capitals. What we need is to use our finances in the right way and to use public finances also in order to finance and invest in this field. Personally, I believe if we take into account all problems that our societies are living today, I have been speaking already about climate change, about the problems that will be discussed during COP26, but we need also to take into account the road systems. And railway systems is really something that is, I think, going to represent the future of Europe and has to be at the center of all our debate. And actually, George and I agree on this topic. It is unfortunate that the large European capitals, Luxembourg, Brussels, and Strasbourg, are not connected as they should in order really to connect the railway system of these three capitals. So everyone knows in details the problems of the connection between Brussels and Luxembourg. And today, traveling between Brussels and Luxembourg takes more than 3 hours, and this is actually not acceptable. So the EU needs to take its responsibility, needs to support the Belgian state, needs to provide for financial help in order to help Belgium to modernize its railway system. And this is why George and I wrote together a letter to the commissioner in order to ask for this kind of help. So on one hand, I'm happy that we're having this debate and that we are thinking about this topic. But on the other hand, I think debating and talking is one thing. Now it is time for action. George, you have the floor. Shall I switch my mic on? No, it is on already. Well, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, François, for welcoming me. It is a pleasure to be here in Luxembourg, and actually it is interesting to discuss with our colleagues, ministers for mobility, because it is the first time since I became minister that now finally we can be together and discuss these topics. So I'm really happy to be here in Luxembourg. I'm happy to work again with François. We used to work together when we were member of parliament and we were in the same political group. So I'm really happy to be here today with him. And it is really interesting that finally we're discussing a railway system and mobility. Now, apart from all the pandemic problems, I think the stars may be in line for us in order to allow for development of railway system of our project, in order to make the railway system the backbone of our transport system. We need to invest in the railway, and this is actually also what the European Commission is requesting within the Green Deal discussions, they are inviting European states to invest in the railway system. And it is true that the railway train is a very green transport system. It does not emit as many greenhouse gases as other systems. It also helps to solve traffic problems. So, and it makes it easier, for example, to be able to come from Brussels to Luxembourg. And of course, more people use the train, less people use the car. So this can improve the situation on the roads. This can lessen CO2 emissions. And these are all objectives that we have on the world, on the global level. So we all know the consequences of CO2 emissions, and our agreement actually also considers the transport of goods. We think that we will multiply by 2 the transport of goods by railway, by train. So our ambitions go together, they go hand in hand, and we want to modernize this transport system, the Brussels, Luxembourg, Strasbourg axis. So it is actually an axis that I know very well because I have been using this for a long time. And 20, 30 years ago, we had other people that were responsible, like Isabelle Durand and other people who were responsible in about environmental policies. So we are trying to improve the speed of our trains. We're trying to improve and modernize the line. And if we can modernize the railway, the line, it will allow actually to have the right speed, and the trains will be much more useful for people willing to travel from Luxembourg to Brussels. So we're working on it. We have some investments already in Belgium. 70 million have already been invested in Belgium in order to go forward with the modernization of this line. So we do need more funds, and this is why we wrote a letter to the European Commission together with François, first of all to explain how important railway system is for our countries, for the Union, but also trying to push this modernization, because if we start here, then we go to Brussels, we go to Strasbourg, we go to Switzerland, we go to Italy. So it is very important to modernize the railway system so we can reduce aviation transport, which is much more polluting, and we can also reduce truck transport for goods, for example. So these developments start actually from Anvers, the North Sea, and goes towards Lyon. And this is all axes that we need to develop. And we need, in this way, to help in reduce CO2 emissions. So if we use trains, for example, for transport of goods, this means we can have every day maybe 50 to 70 trucks less on the road. We have actually a very positive answer from from Madame Valian, and she said that the Commission is willing to help us with the working group. So they say we can actually introduce, we can start the Connecting Europe Facility project, and the Commission will actually analyze our request for funding, and they're willing to help. They will help us to find other financial means that we need in order to implement this project. And of course, in Belgium, we do not only need to develop the access towards Luxembourg, we also need to develop other railway system. So we know, we have many workers who come from Belgium, especially from the province of Luxembourg in Belgium towards the city of Luxembourg. So the idea of offering a railway system that is going to help these people to leave their car at home is actually something that goes completely in the direction of our objectives. And we are working with François independently of the third axis, which is more an international axis, the one towards Strasbourg. So we do need to use the opportunities that we have ahead of us. We know that the European Commission is pro the Green Deal and wants to invest finally in the railway mobility, even though those investments are not always enough. But we're working with our European colleagues in order to push forward these investments. And all these together actually offer interesting perspectives. We have in Belgium since October 1st actually already made a few steps with the 70 millions that we have invested in order to accelerate these construction works. There is a journalist who is actually here today, and we were actually speaking about modernization of this railway system, and this journalist was actually asking many questions about this topic because he has been working for a long time on this topic. So that's what I actually try to explain, that we are now in a good place. We have improved our resources and we're trying to improve the good transport in a very effective manner. Of course, we're going to improve the railway system for people too. Of course, the line is a mixed line for people and for goods. And actually, because we are today in a European Union meeting, I would like to underline that that's what Europe is. Also, that means we need to improve connection through the railway system, because before in the past, we used to close the system and to try to separate them. We had different power system of our railway, for example, and now we're going in the opposite directions. We're opening it and we are connecting it all together. And of course, we're trying to find the less polluting possible way of transport. And I hope we will be able to do this with the support of the Commission and of the European Union. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? I don't know who is giving the floor to the journalists. Devin Marquez from Le Quotidien, Luxembourg. My first question, you have not spoken about a date. We know these discussions have been going on for a long time. The support of the Commission should be concrete very soon. But can you say something about the dates? Actually, I was expecting this question. Well, the calendar based on the investments that are planned on a multi-annual basis are planned to go until 2028. So I've started less than a year ago as a minister, so I've started immediately to work on this topic. Of course, it takes time. It's not something that we can do in one night. But what we're trying to do is trying to make the time frame shorter and shorter. Now, I have learned in a few months that when we speak about railway systems, we should not speak about time frame. So I don't want to say any exact date, because we cannot we cannot make any promises, basically. But what we will try to do for sure is the project should be going on until 2028. But our objective is really to accelerate the ending of the construction works and try to make the time frame much shorter. So we have done the biggest part of our work. We are now trying to accelerate the construction works on the axis that comes out of Brussels. We still have to make the network more robust, a little bit stronger. If transport, as François was saying, of course, if construction works are so long, of course, it's because construction takes time. And when we need to do construction works, of course, it takes longer. But at least it is done. Now, as I say, the time frame says 2028, so hopefully it can be shorter. Now, is Luxembourg government going to be able to co-finance these construction works, like with France? Oh, this is an excellent question. Yes, we have modernized the Luxembourg part, says Minister Bausch, and of course we are always interested in discussing with Belgium to try to see how we can help in these investments. It is also, for example, a way of discussing how to organize the line after the construction part. So, for example, for financing trains and using the trains. So the first meeting that we are going to have in July with Belgium, the meeting will be held in Luxembourg. We will be able to discuss on this topic. You also spoke, Minister Gilkinet, about other axes, for example, Luxembourg-Liège. Yes, for the axis Luxembourg-Liège, we have invested actually very much. We have actually a connection with a train every hour, which was not the case before, because before we had a train every 2 hours. So now this is actually an investment in terms of human investment, because of course we have costs linked to human resources and power resources. Not only costs in terms of infrastructure, but we will have also infrastructure development on the Liège-Brussels axis. Now we are also working on the axis Brussels-Namur to Luxembourg, and we are working on other axes. So we're trying to find pragmatic solutions which are going to help, and it's not always easy actually as a new minister of mobility, and of course, you know, budget is not always available. We need sometimes to try to reduce our budget. So we have a system that needs to be reinforced in Flanders, for example, and if we don't do these construction works, we might have really service interruptions. So there are investments sometimes which are a priority, and now I would like to say that our priority, another priority, is actually the connection towards Luxembourg. But I don't want to make any promises, because we do have excellent relationship between the two ministries, between Belgium and Luxembourg, and I'm hoping that before 2023 we are going to be able to reinforce the connections and the railway system between the two countries. The journalist is speaking without a microphone.
Just to be sure, could you remind what is the expected connection time by 2028, and if there's any chance that it will speed up eventually? What would be your, let's say, dream connection?
This is not a new connection. This is to improve the commercial speed on a line that already exists between the two countries, the line 161, 162 between Brussels and Luxembourg. And in order to improve the commercial speed and the effectiveness of the railway, we need to correct some curbs which have problems in this project and that oblige the train to go slower. So we need to modernize a part of the material of the infrastructure. So we are not going to create a new railway system, but we need to make the existing rails more robust and to make this line in order that it can allow trains to go a little bit faster. And because this line has been used actually for many years by the members of the European Parliament, so they can go from Brussels to Strasbourg or to Luxembourg for their meetings, well, this line actually was used anyway. So we know this axis, for example, with the night train from Luxembourg to Chiasso, to other cities. So the thing is, this line is getting old. So what we need is to revitalize, to revive this line. And this part, actually, this is part of the European construction, because we need to allow our European citizens to be able to go from one country to another using the railway system. And also concerning the transport times, well, this is connected actually to the fact that we would like to reduce the transport time by half an hour. This would be a first step, but we hope we can reduce the traveling time by more than that. But again, I don't want to promise anything, because I don't want to see any title saying on your newspaper, tomorrow traveling time between Luxembourg and Brussels will be 2 hours. No, not yet. But of course, the train is already comfortable, because, you know, in the train you can work, you can discuss with people, you can look at the landscape, which is something that you cannot do when you're driving, and you're not polluting. So this is even better. So hopefully the transport time will be even less than what it is now. You spoke about 70 millions that were invested since you started in your role as minister. What have they been used for? Well, they have been used, says Minister Gilkinet, they have been used in order to replace some elements of the existing line, some mechanical elements, and as you come from Belgium, you might know all the construction works that have been done between the stations of Ciney and Point Saint-Hubert, and yes, all the rocky walls that we need to work on in order to allow the rail to go through this system. But of course, I can give you, after the press conference, I can give you more details. But it's really in the part between Ciney and Libremont where we have been doing construction work. Yes, the other project that we often hear about is the Park and Ride project. Can you say something about this project? Yes, we actually often have the parliamentary question period about this Park and Ride project. Yes, actually, François and I have been discussing, and we're working on this. My priority is really to reinforce the train system between the province of Luxembourg and the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. We want to allow people to travel freely and as easily as possible by train between these two points. So this is really a project that is important for us. And yes, with this parking, there is another parking in Vivid that is a new parking on which we're working. But I think as a minister for mobility in Belgium, we really need to work on the park and ride project, but we also need to put more trains because otherwise it is useless. So far, the important part for us is to develop the train connection between the province of Luxembourg and Luxembourg City. So this is really what we want to do. So again, before park and ride, my priority is to improve the frequency of the train system. Mr. Collin, l'essentiel. I also have a question which is not really connected to the railway, but I think we have a new car riding that has been created, so a new corridor for car sharing that has been created. Now, this corridor has been created 2 years ago, so I would like to know what has happened since the creation of this corridor. Well, in Belgium, actually, we have a different system. This is another colleague of mine who is in charge of these parts, so the car corridors. So concerning the car sharing corridor, I will leave the floor to François, who might be able to give more information because he speaks to my colleague about this topic. Well, in Luxembourg, we have a less complex situation because we have one minister in charge for different topics. So I have met the Belgian minister a couple of times, and once we also met the three of us with George. We have actually a project for a car sharing corridor starting from Luxembourg. The only problem that we have concerned compared to what has been done in Belgium is that we want to put the corridor for car sharing in the middle and not on one side because of all the highway exit. So in Belgium, in the different regions, in Wallonie and in other regions, they had a fixed idea about the car sharing corridor. So they spoke to us when their project was already basically finalized. So it was not built already, but the idea was finalized and they had started the construction work. So the idea is that we need to have the car sharing lane where we can have actually exits, and because we have a lot of interchanges in Luxembourg in the highway system. So we need to find the way, the technical way on how to organize these lanes for car sharing, and our administration that is in charge for roads is actually studying the problem and studying the system in order to have a car sharing lane also on the Luxembourg side. Do we have other questions? It seems not to be the case. So I would like to thank you very much for your presence here today. And probably we will meet again in July for the next step of our discussions. And I would like to say that what François has been doing here in Luxembourg for the general mobility is really unbelievable, is really excellent. So we will keep working together for a more sustainable mobility. Thank you very much.